Welcome to the Read Aloud for September 22nd, day 7. Here we go. Alright, I didn't practice my guitar much today. Mondays are always kind of a little busy. Let's see. Keep working on that one. I like that one. Okay, here we go. Oh, look, I got Gandalf. Okay, he's gonna watch me read. Let's see where we were. Did I start my timer? Oh, I didn't start my timer, guys. Here we go. Okay, where were we? Oh yeah, the trolls. Okay. Let's see, right in the middle of the fight, up came Balin. The dwarves had heard noises from a distance, and after waiting for some time for Bilbo to come back, or to hoot like an owl, they started up one by one to creep towards the light as quietly as they could. No sooner did Tom see Balin come into the light that he gave an awful howl. Trolls simply detest the very sight of dwarves, uncooked. Bert and Bill stopped fighting immediately, and a sack, Tom, quick, they said. Before Balin, who was wondering where in all this commotion Bilbo was, knew what was happening, a sack was over his head and he was down. There's more to come yet, said Tom, where I mighty mistook. Lots and none at all it is, said he. No burra hobbits, but lots of these here dwarves. That's about the shape of it. I reckon you're right, said Bert, and we best get out of the light. And so they did. With sacks in their hands that they used for carrying off mutton and other plunder, they waited in the shadows. As each dwarf came up and looked at the fire and the spilled jugs and the gnawed mutton, in surprise, pop went a nasty-smelling sack over his head, and he sat down. Soon Dwalin lay by Balin, and Fili and Kili together, and Dori and Nori and Ori all in a heap, and Oin and Gloin and Bifur and Bofer and Bombur piled uncomfortably near the fire. That'll teach 'em, said Tom. But Bifur and Bombur had given a lot of trouble and fought like mad, as dwarves will when cornered. Thorn came last, and he was not caught unawares. He came expecting mischief, and didn't need to see his friend's legs sticking out of sacks to tell him that things were not all well. He stood outside in the shadows some way off and said, "What's all this trouble? Who's been knocking my people about?" "It's trolls," said Bilbo from behind a tree. They had forgotten about him. "They're hiding in the bushes with sacks," said he. "Oh, are they?" said Thorn, and he jumped forward to the fire. Before they could leap on him, he caught up a branch all on fire in one end, and Bert got the end. Bert got the end in his eye before he could step aside. That put him out of the battle for a bit. Bilbo did his best. He caught a hold of Tom's leg as well as he could. It was as thick as a young tree branch. But he was sent spinning up into the top of some bushes when Tom kicked the sparks up in Thorn's face. Tom got the branch in his teeth for that and lost one of his front ones. It made him howl, I can tell you. But just at that moment, William came up from behind and popped a sack right over Thorn's head and down to his toes. And so the fight ended. A nice pickle they were all in now, all neatly tied up in sacks, with 3 angry trolls and 2 with burns and bashes to remember, sitting by them, arguing whether they should roast them slowly, or mince them fine and boil them, or just sit on them one by one and squash them into jelly. And Bilbo up in a bush, with his clothes and his skin torn, not daring to move for fear they should hear him. It was just then that Gandalf came back, but no one saw him. The trolls had decided to roast the dwarves now and eat them later, and that was Bert's idea. After a lot of argument, they had all agreed to it. "No roasting them now. It'd take all night," said a voice. Bert thought it was William's. "Don't start the argument all over again, Bill," he said, "or it will take all night." "Who's arguing?" said William, who thought it was Bert that had spoken. "You are," said Bert. You're a liar, said William. And so the argument began all over again. In the end, they decided to mince them fine and boil them. So they got a great black pot, and they took out their knives. No good boiling them, we ain't got no water, and it's a long way to the well, all, said a voice. Bert and William thought it was Tom's. Shut up, they said, or we'll never have done, and you fetch the water yourself if you say any more. Shut up yourself, said Tom, who thought it was William's voice. Who's arguing but you, I'd like to know? You're a booby, said William. Booby yourself, said Tom. And so the argument began all over again and went on hotter than ever until at last they decided to sit on the sacks one by one and squash them and boil them the next time. Who shall we sit on first, said the voice. Better sit on that last fellow first, said Bert, whose eye had been damaged by Thorin. He thought Tom was talking. Don't talk to yourself, said Tom, but if you want to sit on the last one, sit on him. Which is he? The one with the yellow stockings, said Bert. Nonsense, the one with the gray stockings, said a voice like William's. I made sure it was yellow, said Bert. Yellow it was, said William. Then what did you say it was gray for, said Bert. I never did, said Tom said it. Tom said it. That I never did, said Tom. It was you. 2-1, so shut your mouth, said Bert. Who are you a-talking to, said William. Now stop it, said Tom and Bert together. The night's getting on and dawn comes early. Let's get on with it. Dawn take all of you and be stoned to you, said a voice that sounded like William's, but it wasn't. And for just at that moment, the light came over the hill, and there was a mighty twitter in the branches. William never spoke, for he stood turned to stone as he stooped, and Bert and Tom were stuck like rocks as they looked at him. And there they stand to this day, all alone, unless the birds perch on them. For trolls, as you probably know, must be underground before dawn, where they go back to the stuff of the mountains they are made of and never move again. And that is what had happened to Bert and Tom and William. Excellent, said Gandalf, as he stepped from behind a tree and helped Bilbo to climb down off a thorn bush. Then Bilbo understood. It was the wizard's voice that kept the trolls bickering and quarreling until the light came and made an end of them. The next thing was to untie the sacks and let out the dwarves. They were nearly suffocated and very annoyed. They had not at all enjoyed lying there listening to the trolls making plans for roasting them and squashing them and mincing them. They had to hear Bilbo's account of what had happened to him twice over before they were satisfied. Silly time to go practicing pinching and pocket picking, said Bombur, when what we want was fire and food. And that's just what you wouldn't have got of those fellows without a struggle in any case, said Gandalf. Anyhow, you are wasting time now. Don't you realize that the trolls must have a cave or a hole dug somewhere near to hide from the sun in? We must look into it. They searched about and soon found the marks of trolls' stony boots going away through the trees. They followed the track up the hill until, hidden by bushes, they came on a big door of stone leading to a cave. But they could not open it, not though they all pushed while Gandalf tried various incantations. Would this be any good? Asked Bilbo, when they were getting tired and angry. I found it on the ground when the trolls had their fight. He held out a largest key, though no doubt William had thought it very small and secret. It must have fallen out of his pocket, very luckily, before he turned to stone. Why on earth didn't you mention it before? They cried. Gandalf grabbed it and fitted it into the keyhole, and then the stone door swung back with one big push, and they all went inside. There were bones on the floor, and a nasty smell was in the air, but there was a good deal of food jumbled carelessly on shelves and on the ground, among an untidy litter of plunder of all sorts, from brass buttons to pots full of gold, coins standing in a corner. There were a lot of clothes, too, hanging on the walls, too small for trolls. I am afraid they belonged to victims, and among them were several swords of various makes, shapes, and sizes. Two caught their eye particularly because of their beautiful scabbards and jeweled hilts. Gandalf and Thorin each took one of these, and Bilbo took a knife in a leather sheath. It would have made only a tiny pocket knife for a troll, but it was as good as a short sword for a hobbit. These look like good blades, said the wizard, half drawing them and looking at them curiously. They were not made by any troll, nor by any smith among men in these parts and days, but when we can read the runes on them, we shall know more about them. Oh, I forgot to tell you, there was a picture that was a little bit ahead. I thought, here's the picture of them in the troll cave. Let's get out of this horrible smell, said Ophelia. And so they carried out the pots of coins and such food as was untouched and looked fit to eat. Also 1 barrel of ale, which was still full. By this time they felt like breakfast, and being very hungry, they did not turn their noses up at what they had got from the troll's larder. Their own provisions were very scanty. Now they had bread and cheese and plenty of ale and bacon to toast in the embers of the fire. After they had slept, for their night had been disturbed, they did nothing more till the afternoon, and then they brought up the ponies and carried away the pots of gold and buried them very secretly not far from the track by the river, putting a great many spells over them just in case they ever had the chance to come back and recover them. When that was done, they all mounted once more and jogged along again on the path toward the east. Where did you go to, if I may ask?" said Thorin to Gandalf as they rode along. "To look ahead," said he. "And what brought you back in the nick of time?" "Looking behind," said he. "Exactly," said Thorin. "But could you be more plain?" "I went on to spy out our road. It will soon become dangerous and difficult. Also, I was anxious about replenishing our small stock of provisions. I had not gone very far, however, when I met a couple of friends of mine from Rivendell." "Where's that?" asked Bilbo. "Don't interrupt," said Gandalf. "You will get there in a few days now, if we're lucky, and find out all about it. As I was saying, I met 2 of Elrond's people. They were hurrying along for fear of the trolls. It was they who told me that the 3 of them had come down from the mountains and settled in the woods not far from the road. They had frightened everyone away from the district, and they waylaid strangers. I immediately had a feeling that I was wanted back. Looking behind, I saw a fire in the distance and made for it. So now you know. Please be more careful next time, or we shall never get anywhere." "Thank you," said Thorin. And that's the end of chapter 2. Look, chapter 3, a short rest. We'll read that tomorrow. See you guys.